Well, it's the end of another roof raise here at the Wolf Dog Buses shop up in Washington. And before we go any farther, I just want to go ahead and give you guys a brief tour of the roof raise as it's been done, show you some things that I did along the way that I recommend doing in any type of roof raise that I think are just good practice. And in the next 5 minutes, download to you all my tips and tricks so that if you're doing this yourself, you've got a good shot at doing it right. Let's get started. So walking down this side, the first thing that we did is we replaced the stock school bus door with a custom door that I made. This is an awesome upgrade to make, and I highly recommend doing it because the front door of your bus is something you're going to interact with multiple times a day for as long as you own it. And it has to not only function and be easy to open, but it has to lock and be secure. And if you're like me, you're gonna want a window that opens with the screen. You're gonna want a little bit of insulation in there and a better weather strip. And that's something you can do when you make a door yourself. I've got a video out there on how you make these doors, but essentially when we did the roof raise, we just took the whole door out and then welded in a new hinge here, cleaned up the top, cut back the stair a couple inches so that our new door closes onto the stair instead of on top of it. So any water and stuff can just drain out really nice. And then we rebuild the door from scratch. I use one of these keyless RV locks that also has a fob you can use. And now we've got a door that will seal really nice, is mostly square, and is lockable and secure. This is a great upgrade. It's a lot of work though. It takes me a solid 2.5 days to make a door like this. Doesn't come cheap. Coming down the side, the other thing I recommend doing is fully removing the upper rub rail. Yes, you can remove the top row of rivets and try to slot your sheets in and drop them down, but that's a huge pain in the butt. You're already gonna be removing a ton of rivets. Just remove a few more so you can pull the whole rub rail off. It's gonna make everything else you do a lot easier. Of course, when you do a roof raise, you've gotta go ahead and get rid of the school bus windows. And I recommend putting in new RV or better windows. You know, RV windows aren't the only windows you can put in. They're pretty good, but anything's better than the stock windows. Back here, we got the wheelchair door. That was deleted. If you buy a bus with a wheelchair door, be prepared to do a fair bit of fabrication to get rid of the wheelchair door and make it look close to like the rest of the bus. We saved the rub rails here, put them on in a fun pattern. There's a lot of tucking and nibbling to get all these sheets to go in there nicely, but the end result, it almost looks like it never came with a wheelchair lift. Coming around to the back here, we went ahead and did some window deletes to get rid of this glass on the back. That's a good move because most people's bed platforms are going to be like halfway up here anyways. It's not a bad idea to put a window on the back of your bus though up higher, especially in this flat spot where we did the roof raise. If you're considering doing a roof raise, know that that's an option for you. Coming around to this side, we got more of the same. You can see where we've got the sealant coming out from between our panels. It's, in my opinion, not totally necessary, but it's not gonna really do any harm to put sealant on the lap joints of your panels. And so we did that here. That's a good move. And here's another emergency exit that we went over and patched out again. We saved our pieces of rub rail and put them back on. The owner of this bus is actually gonna be putting in a door here. So this actually worked out really nice and looks pretty clean. Another thing that you should definitely consider doing if you're doing a roof raise is an electrical detox. Let me show you what's involved with that. Stay right there. Now in pretty much every bus, there's gonna be a panel like this, not always accessible from the outside, sometimes only from the inside, where all of the electrical for the chassis, the running gear of the bus, comes to. This box, I'll throw in a photo, was full of wires, and not just wires, but also the pneumatic system that operated the front door and the stop arms and the crossing guard in front. And if you have an air seat as well. I've removed all of that. I went ahead and spliced the air lines together so that we don't have to worry about that in the future. If the new owners want to put in an air ride seat, they can tee off it there. I then go through and cut all the wires off the back of the switches for all of the gear we're not using, remove the flasher system for the school bus lights, and just go wire by wire, eliminating everything that either no longer works or is no longer needed or is getting replaced. And that leaves us with what you're looking at here. If you go in, you can find out which lights go to your tail lights. And then I use some 5-wire trailer cable, and it's got all of the wires you need to go to the tail lights, stop lights, the turn signals, the backup lights, and that's it. And then we tie off And we go up, we do a loop for the marker lights or the clearance lights, whatever you want to call them. And that's all the wiring we have to add back. The dome lights, the speakers, the emergency exit alarms, all of that stuff is gone. And now if there's an issue, only the wires in here are the ones that do things. If it didn't do something, it's gone. It's a good move I love. And since there was no writing in here, I went ahead and gave them a key so that at least they know what these wires do when they open this up. It's also cool when you do a detox, because I went in and found a lot of connections that were done either poorly or with the wrong gauge of cable that would cause issues later on. And I made a couple of items that are important, like the flasher for the turn signals and a relay for the heaters, in a more prominent location with the appropriate wire gauges going to them. So they should function at least better or safer going down the road, pun intended. This bus, we did a sloped front transition, which is a little bit more work than a standard full roof raise. So the front stays the same, but if you look, we've got this nice slope and it's done in 3 pieces. You do the right side and the left side, and then the center cap goes on there. It's a pretty approachable way to do it, but it does involve a lot of welding on really thin sheet metal. And if you're not good at that, it's going to be a problem for you. But a couple of tips that'll make that easy: use a lower powered welder. You don't need a 220 or a big welder to do this, and a lower powered welder is going to make it easier. Clean and prep the steel really well before you go. And then as you tack weld that into place, do a bunch of little tacks all over rather than long continuous bead. All of that heat is going to cause warpage in the steel. You're probably going to blow through it. And so the method I like to use is called the Texas TIG, where you just go zzz, 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 and just bounce around, filling in short welds everywhere. I can kind of show you what it looks like on the inside here. So take a look right here, and you see how there's just all these little dots, just zzz, zzz, zzz. You just go all the way down the line, and then once that's done, we clean it, we paint it on the inside. I go out to the roof and do a full coat of sealant on both the top and the lower seams, and then our transition is done. And in here you can see that big bundle of wires that everyone has. We've got our trailer cable and our clearance lights, and that's it. And there's room in these P-clamps if you want to run more. I also encourage, if you've got a Bluebird or a Thomas, run your new bundle up a little bit higher, because if it's down low, it's going to be hard to get spray foam in this gap, and you run the risk of, when you're shooting your trim on, if you're careless, having a nail go into your cable, and that's also a bummer. So kind of imagine where your strapping is going to go, where your framing is going to go, and pick a spot that's a little bit out of the way. We got our new windows in, and I think it's time to hand this off.
Could you tell me the difference between a straight up roof raise over the windshield and a transition?
So the difference between a straight up roof raise and a transition like this is, in a straight up roof raise, instead of having our cut end here, we cut the front as well. And so the front comes up with the rest of the roof, and you end up with, in our case, it would have been an 18-inch taller forehead here. That does give you the ability to add another windshield up here, which is what I do on my buses, and have a little more space. But I don't think it's as aesthetically attractive from the outside as this bus. And I think this bus, well, I think it looks really good. Let's go outside. So these buses, this is only a 27-foot long bus, I think. And it's got a short wheelbase, but it's got big tires. And doing the roof raise this style with the slope transition, I think it just makes it look really good. This bus has a good stance, and I'm a big fan of how it all came together and turned out. It looks a little more rugged and tough, and it doesn't look totally ridiculous. It's kind of in line with, I don't know, some of the vintage buses in the past. They actually had little roof raises like this. Not 18 inches worth, but I think it's a good look. So I hope that does it for you. It does it for me. Those are some tips and tricks if you're considering doing a roof raise. It'll save you some headaches. Oh, also, these side view mirrors, take them off when you do the roof raise, but be ready for a headache when you put them back on. These holes are often stripped out, and you'll, instead of reusing the old hardware, I recommend using rivets, because they won't come loose and they won't come out of these rusty old threads that are in the old steel frames. Anyway, that's my last tip for you. If you're considering a roof raise, good luck. And if you need any help with that, you can always book a consult with me on my website, chuckcassidy.com. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.